Welcome to the Painting Lines Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things tennis. Join Erik and Aidan in their discussion for updates on news and pop culture, and from hot takes to betting, they've got you covered.
Ready? Play.
Welcome back to Painting Lines. Last week we discussed the career of Stefanos Tsitsipas, delving into his past and current situation. And this week we're going to be giving a recap of the Shanghai Masters and our takes on the tournament overall. So Erik, just starting things off, what were your thoughts on the tournament as a whole? Like, was it good? Was it bad? Like, what did you think?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I was shocked by the outcome. I did not really expect Hurkacz to win the title. There were a ton of upsets, and you know how I always go back and forth on saying I don't like seeing upsets. I like tennis being kind of run by the same people. Well, I'm going back and forth here, and I think it is a little refreshing to see Rublev and Hurkacz in a championship. So thought that was cool. Overall, good tournament. What about you? What were you thinking?
Yeah, speaking on that, I think it is cool because I think in a final you're going to see these guys playing at their highest level. And if tennis is always dominated by the same couple guys, you only really ever get to see their extra gear to win the title. Versus when you have guys like Hurkacz and Rublev, they don't necessarily always get that opportunity. So I felt like the level of tennis in that final was just great from both of those guys.
Yeah, definitely.
But honestly, my first feeling, I feel like the lack of Djokovic was kind of felt in the tournament. Because Djokovic has won 25 out of his last 26 matches. So in a tournament with so many kind of upsets and like surprising people in the last few rounds, I feel like you might have kind of expected to just see Djokovic kind of cruising through and beating easier people almost.
Oh yeah, 100%. Especially if he didn't have to play Carlos in that either. I feel like that would have been his biggest competitor there. But I think it would be pretty interesting to see Djokovic and Dimitrov go at it.
Yeah, I feel like Dimitrov would just slowly get out-rallied and outmaneuvered by Djokovic.
Yeah. Well, so Djokovic, he did not go to Asia at all this season, right?
No.
Okay. I respect that. Look at all these players that are there, I feel like it is just such a difficulty getting out all the way out there, losing the first round, having to stay, do another tournament. So I kind of like Djokovic's move not to play in there.
Yeah, it's definitely a commitment to go all the way out there for those few tournaments. And if he doesn't feel like he really needs it, he still has kind of pole position to win the year-end number one.
Totally.
But yeah, so just starting off in like the early rounds of this tournament, it kind of was interesting because it was just round by round, you were slowly losing more and more top seeds. And so like in the first round, just kicking things off, we had a couple of top seeds go out in just very one-sided fashion. Like Rune got whooped by Nakashima. It was 6-0, 6-2. Nothing Rune was doing was working, and Nakashima was just like, okay, I'm just going to take advantage of that. I don't know whether it was just a mental thing for Rune, but he just wasn't playing at the level you kind of expect from him.
I did catch some of the highlights, and I saw in the second set, obviously he was down significantly, but he was still able to celebrate his winners, his nice shots, which I think is a good sign that he is still looking forward. Like this isn't going to be an end all be all for him. It's kind of just a little bump in the road.
Yeah. And then another guy that lost early was Zverev. He got dominated by Safiullin 6-3, 6-1. And I think it was kind of a little bit of a revenge match for Safiullin because Zverev actually beat him in the Chengdu Open in the final 6-7, 7-6, 6-3. So super tight match. And then Safiullin comes into this match and he's like, I'm not losing to him again. And one thing I think was really good was he was not afraid to like come up and be aggressive and come to the net. I think that really paid off for him in this match.
Yeah, this guy Safiullin's proving to be a thorn in the side for a lot of these players.
Speaking of a guy that's been a thorn in the side for guys is Maroszan. He made a run this tournament. Upsets Diminar in the first round, who's been playing excellently this summer and fall. So really a shocker.
Yeah, he must have eaten his Wheaties that morning.
Yeah. And then the final shocker from the first round was Tiafoe losing to Sonego. Sonego's a good player, but I feel like Tiafoe should have gotten it done.
Yeah, I'm kind of bearish on Tiafoe right now. I wonder what it is, if it's just the wear and tear end of the season or the long flight to Asia. I don't know if that was the best for him to go all the way over there. Like, do you see an alternative? What else could he have done? Like take time off or play in smaller tournaments?
There's I think a requirement to play in a lot of these bigger tournaments. And so it's not like you can just be like, oh, I don't want to go to Asia, I can skip. But yeah, moving on to the next round. I mean, the round of 32 had really one big upset, and that was Sebastian Korda beating Medvedev 7-6, 6-2. I think this is just a sign of kind of like what Alafia was talking about in our interview with him. He was like, yeah, Sebi is just one of those guys where every once in a while he just starts playing out of his mind and there's nothing you can do. So there was an incredibly close first set between Korda and Medvedev. Went to a tiebreak. And then there was a crazy point on break set point for Medvedev, 20 shots or something, and they were gumming up, coming to the net, lobbing, going back. All sorts of stuff was happening, and eventually Korda won it with a swinging volley, ended up taking the set. Then Korda got a break in the second game of the second set, and I think it just capitalized on the momentum he already had from winning that first set, and he kind of just carried it through the end of the match.
Mm-hmm. How was Medvedev, his body language and his, I guess, mentality during that second set? Did he already look defeated? Because I could see Medvedev, he's the type of player that could easily flip it around. You know what I mean? Because he tends to go down early in matches and then comes back and win, like what he did with Deminar.
I think the thing about that is like you have more time in a Grand Slam. He lost that first set against Deminar in the US Open, but he's like, he still has to beat me in 2 more sets, which he doesn't think is going to happen. So he has like a level of calmness probably. Versus when you lose a first set here, it's like there's a lot more on the line. All of a sudden you're playing in an elimination set.
Yeah, I know.
Then moving on to the round of 16. This was really, I think, the round where a lot more of the shocks actually happened because first off, Maroszan continued rolling, beat Ruud. It was a close match, 7-6, 3-6, 6-4, but I think that Maroszan was just on a roll. He probably had a lot of confidence after beating Deminar, and so...
Mm-hmm. So with Ruud, though, when he was doing so well a couple years ago, when he was in that U.S. Open final, when he was in the Roland Garros final, was he playing a different type of tennis than he is now? Or like, are people just adjusting to being able to play Ruud better? Because how do you go drastically that down, but still continue the same style of play?
Well, I think here's the thing, is we can't count him out, really. Like, Ruud is still a top 10 player in the world at this point. And I think Maroszan was just, it was his day maybe. But we expect so much from him. And I think that's a trend that we talk about a lot, is that when a guy is in the top 10, we expect them to be in the quarterfinals pretty much. And if they're not in the quarterfinals, we expect it to be like, oh, you lost to another top 10 guy.
But hey, Maroszan, it's not, like you said, it's kind of not the worst guy to lose to because he's kind of known for doing this.
Yeah. I mean, speaking on that, I have an idea for a nickname of just calling him the Hungarian Headhunter because until he gets established in like the top 50 or so in the world, he has proven that he can like beat anyone. So like he's like the headhunter. He collects like these wins over top guys. Obviously, he beat Deminar and Ruud this tournament, but like earlier in the year, he beat Alcaraz in Rome. So, like, on his day, he can be a next-level guy. But I was, like, reviewing some of his other matches, and, like, he can also lose in straight sets to a guy outside the top 300.
Dude, talk about being volatile.
Yeah, exactly. If it's his day, he can just dominate. But if it's not his day, he can be like, oh, I'm just going to lose straight sets to this guy that no one's heard of.
So what's your future outlook on Maroszan?
My guess is that he probably improves to the extent that he is able to be consistent. And even if he isn't necessarily always able to keep up these massive results, I could see him being a guy in like the top 40.
I mean, hey, as long as he continues to disrupt, his name will be relevant.
Yeah, but I mean, moving on to another match, Humbert beat Tsitsipas 6-4, 3-6, 7-5. Kind of like the Maroszan. Obviously, Humbert is much higher rated than Maroszan, but both are top guys that have shown some inconsistency this year. So while they were kind of shock upsets, there was also a level to where it's like, okay, there's been some inconsistency. We just talked about it last week with Tsitsipas, and it's like, okay, a little understandable.
Yeah, I mean, was not going in expecting Tsitsipas to win this tournament. So, I mean, Humbert, like you said, he is a good player. I'm really starting to like Humbert. I love watching him play.
100%. Played well in the last couple tournaments, so Tsitsipas doesn't necessarily have that same momentum.
Yeah, he's got to pick it up.
But another match we had was Schwartzman blew up your parlay by beating Fritz 6-4, 3-6, 7-5, or 7-6. I mean, obviously you had that, what was it, 3-leg parlay last week?
Yeah. Yeah.
And all the other legs paid off, right?
Yeah, all of them hit. It was Alcaraz, Tommy Paul, and then Fritz. And I was mostly worried about Tommy Paul.
Yeah,
Remember?
because he was
Because
playing Fields.
yeah, he was playing Fields, and I was pretty worried about that one. That was why I added the other two legs. So I wish I would have just stuck with Tommy Paul minus 205. But
Yeah.
I didn't watch this match live. I watched the highlights. So to me, when it was in that third set tiebreaker, I was like sitting on the edge of my seat, hadn't checked the scores, like was watching it as if it was live, and so pissed off.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's such a funny thing when you're like on Google and you're looking at the score and you're like, oh, 15, okay. And you're like, you really don't know what's going on in the match.
Oh, I know.
And then like it doesn't update for like a while and you're like, oh, okay, that must have been a crazy point. I wonder what happened.
I know. That's all I was doing during the US Open when I couldn't watch, just screens full of scores, the live scores changing back and forth.
Exactly, exactly.
Oh, dude, it pisses me off too because Schwartzman, I don't know what it is about him, but looking at him, it just looks so awkward. Like his tennis racket looks to be like 2/3 the size of his body. It's all
Yeah, he's
disproportionate.
a little short, but
Yeah, like come on.
yeah. I mean, he's a good player though. I mean, he was like top
Yeah,
10 in the world at one point. So
I know.
he's one of those guys where you can never count him out because he has that capacity.
Yeah, all jokes aside, though, Fritz losing to Schwartzman is just not a good look. I mean, we saw Fritz kind of coming in as the top American, top 10, and to be as inconsistent as this, losing to Schwartzman, you got to be better. And until he's consistent, then people will start taking him seriously as a legitimate top 10 player.
He's like been essentially the top American for a while now, at least. And even though he is technically the top American, people don't even see him as like, oh, this guy is the legitimate next American to win a slam. People are like, oh, maybe it'll be Shelton. Oh, maybe it'll be like Tiafoe. They expect it from someone that can show flashes of crazy wins. Like, think of his U.S. Open run. He made it pretty deep, but didn't really make any impressive wins. He just kind of beat the guys he was expected to win, and then he lost to Djokovic. You have to hope that he can take it to that next level where he can compete and beat the top guys as well as beat the guys that he's expected to beat, which is where you see like Medvedev and Alcaraz and Djokovic, and that's why they separate themselves. Because not only do they beat the top guys like each other, they also are able to just consistently beat the guys that they're expected to beat.
Right. Yeah. So speaking of Americans, though, how about Shelton?
Yeah, had a huge comeback over Sinner, won 2-6, 6-3, 7-6. And I think he just showed that quality we saw at the US Open bleeding into like his other performances at other tournaments, which is really a positive sign. Another deep run at an ATP 1000 event is something that is exciting to see.
Yeah, I feel like Shelton's in that stage right now in his career where he has nothing to lose. Like he has big wins like this, but kind of going back to Fritz and Schwartzman, if Shelton were to lose to Schwartzman, it would have been something like you can forgive, like, oh, he's young. Okay,
Yeah.
like bad match. But now he's, kind of cruising and people are starting to take him more seriously. So I like how Shelton's just playing loose. He's fun, incredibly entertaining to watch. So I think this is great for not only like the US, but I think the world, just him being on tour now.
Yeah. We're going to get into his match with Korda in a second, but those guys have such different personalities. Just because like Shelton is so explosive and he's so massive with the celebrations and he's like more muscular. And then Korda is kind of like a little quieter and he's like a lot thinner and he looks more like just like the classic tennis player. And it seems like he has like no reactions, especially when you were watching that match with him and Shelton. Like the comparison of Shelton's celebration versus Korda's, it's just kind of a funny difference in terms of their personality. And they're like two of the top Americans. And you're like, these guys come from the same country. Why are they so different?
Yeah, hey, that's a great point. I mean, have you ever heard Shelton's dad coach him and talk to him while he's playing? It's kind of the opposite of how you would expect it. He's so calm, so nonchalant. He kind of laughs sometimes too. He'll just be like, all right, bud, good stuff, Ben. All
Yeah.
right, there you go. Hey, keep going there. Like you would think that the way Ben Shelton reacts and plays the game, that his dad would be, yeah, like, come on, keep hammering it down there, like more intense than he is, but he is so laid back.
Well, I think what you see there is like maybe his dad knows that the way to keep Shelton kind of like grounded and balanced in the match is to like give a little bit of that calm energy to him. Like if he was just riling him up even more, maybe he starts to become too aggressive, starts missing shots, losing control of the match.
But you can see out there on the court, I think this is a perfect example of a successful father-son coaching relationship, not like Stefanos and his father. I think they could probably learn something from Ben and his dad here.
Yeah, but like then again, we didn't really have as many issues, I feel like, with Tsitsipas's dad when he was younger coming up. I think maybe it's a situation where 3 years down the line, we'll start seeing a little bit of that tension between the two of them.
Great point.
Then again, I don't think Apostles, I don't know if that's how to pronounce his name. I don't know if he is coached at the same level that Shelton's dad has.
Right.
Because obviously
right.
Shelton's dad was the coach at Florida, which is a top level program. So he knows what it's like to coach not just his son, but to coach tennis players in general.
Yeah. So didn't he not even put him on like the first seed for University of Florida?
I mean, as a freshman, probably not.
I know it's kind of one of those like don't show favoritism type of things.
Exactly. The opposite of Dabo Sweeney in college football putting his sons as like kick holder or something like that.
Yeah. Well, how about Deion Sanders and his son? I didn't even know. So there's Shador, the quarterback, and then he has another son
Shiloh.
on defense too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't really know that. But apparently people are saying that he's not that good, the safety.
I think he's like fine. I don't know if he's like the same level as Deion, which is I think what people are comparing him to.
Is it a meritocracy? Like, should he be starting if his dad wasn't the coach?
It's impossible to know.
I guess so. But hey, this is a tennis podcast,
not
a football podcast.
Yeah.
So
let's get back to
get back to
Dimitrov
and Alcaraz.
Shock of the tournament right there. Dimitrov comes out. He's making this run through the tournament and comes up against Alcaraz, and everyone's like, okay, well, so who's Alcaraz going to play in the quarterfinal? And Dimitrov loses the first set 5-7 and just kind of locks in more, I guess, and wins the next two sets 6-2, 6-4. I was looking through the stats. I was like, what made Dimitrov the winner here? And I think it was just he forced more errors. Like, he just played well. That's really what forced errors say to me is, like, you just played better than your opponent. You put it in a place where they couldn't get it back effectively. It wasn't like Dimitrov hit a ton of winners or there were a bunch of errors from Alcaraz. Like, he just got beaten.
Right. And you saw that with Alcaraz, too. Like, you never really see Carlos shook or shaken up during a match. He always looks pretty calm. He's having a good time, having fun out there. But you saw him visibly distressed, like kind of raising his voice to his box, not really knowing how to handle Grigor. So, I mean, I like to see this. I love when Alcaraz loses. I know that's not very positive, but I think it's good for the game. And I really like when Alcaraz is humbled.
Dimitrov just outplayed him, I think.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. I'm going to get more into detail because it is my match of the week.
Oh, okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Moving on to the quarterfinals. I mean, no real crazy shocks. I talked about that match from Shelton and Korda. That was just a super tight match. I mean, I'll talk about that one later because that's actually my match of the week. Shocker, actually, neither one of us took the final there.
Yeah, I felt like we would talk about the final anyway. As
very true. But the quarterfinal, not really any shocks. I guess Korda beating Shelton, but that's not really that crazy of an upset. But what really shocked me was going into that next round, how kind of easily Hurkacz actually dealt with Korda. Because Korda had been obviously playing very well and comes up against Hubie, and his serve was just like too good.
Yeah, no, I know. It sucks being on the other end of that because you're just getting dominated. And I noticed a lot Korda was just barely getting balls back, like popping them up or like hitting very weak slices. And then Hubie was just finishing him off at the net. And that just sucks. Like you could see Korda being like, dude, I can't do anything here. Can't get it past this guy.
Yeah, and the thing about that is like when he played Shelton in the match before, he'd been doing a similar thing with like chipping kind of the return. But against Shelton, it was like really effective. And against Hurkacz, he just was like, nope, you can't do that against me.
Yeah.
But anyway, moving on to that final. What a match. I think that was probably one of the best. I think it was probably the match of the year that didn't involve like Alcaraz and Djokovic.
I agree.
Hurkacz got it done in 3 sets, 6-3, 3-6, 7-6. First question, did you end up putting that bet down about the over 2.5 sets?
I did not. I
Oh,
pussied out. I know. We were texting about it.
yeah. I was like, I don't know if it'll go 3 sets, but I'm sure it'll go over the game, whatever their game mark is. And I
So you
assume
know
it did.
why though? You know why I didn't place the bet? I got cold feet because you were like, "Yeah, I don't know,"
Oh, no.
and I shouldn't have
Well, if
even
you'd put
asked
if
your
you'd put the
opinion
one
because
that
I wanted your opinion.
I
That's the thing about betting. How much of it do you think should be like irrational decision making versus gut emotional like feeling? Like I just had an instinct or
Well, if you think if it's just for fun, you
yeah,
just go with the gut. But
yeah,
it's like how I do my March Madness bracket every year. I kind of just go with the gut. Like I don't know what's gonna happen, but I'm like, it's just for fun.
yeah. Well,
But
that has like a pretty much
exactly.
0% chance.
But if it's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna bet like $1,000 on this
Mhm.
match. I'm betting it goes over 2.5 sets. Then you got to be really rational about it.
Yeah, you better be damn sure.
Yeah. Well, because I could have
But
easily seen this match going like 7-6, 7-6, and Hurkacz or Rublev winning it. And
mhm.
that's why I felt like way more confident on the over on the games, but not necessarily on the going to 3 sets.
Yeah. Well, hey, I mean, Rublev, he's had a good year, not to take anything away from it, but he's not inconsistent, but I think that was winnable for him. Hurkacz was doing a good job of taking pace off Rublev's shots, which I think he could have made more adjustments and tried to run him more,
Mm.
versus just kind of like hitting with him.
Yeah. I definitely think that Rublev sometimes needs to like shift up his pace because he hits the ball so hard
Mhm.
that, and that works against like 99% of people.
Mhm.
But when you sometimes get it like stopped and someone's able to hit with you a little bit and take pace off and deal with his hard ground strokes, he needs to maybe be able to adjust and be like, okay, I'm going to throw in some slices. I'm going to throw in maybe just some off speed ground
Yeah.
strokes just to kind of make it so that Hurkacz doesn't have that same rhythm in that match.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because Hurkacz essentially didn't even have to like do much because of Rublev's fast balls coming at him. He's just putting them back.
Yeah. One of the funniest things I saw with Hurkacz though was on some of the serves. Unlike a lot of guys where it's like they do the jump step into the return and then they kind of like jump to the ball when they're
Mhm.
returning it. Hurkacz he's so tall, he just kind of like walked over to it. And so he would take like a step and just like slap the ball and it would be like a winner and you'd be like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah. Dude, he's kind of an awkward player when he's on the court. He walks around. He's like tall, lanky,
Yeah.
just kind of like shuffles around out there.
Yeah.
Super nice guy though. I don't know if you watched the press conference after, but he just seems like a genuinely kind human being.
Yeah, every video or like tennis TV thing put out with him in it is always like, "Oh my God, this guy seems so nice."
Yeah. Yeah, that's like he's like wouldn't even harm a fly type of guy.
Exactly. But I mean, I'm super happy for him. I mean, it's his
Mhm.
second Masters 1000 title, arguably the biggest result he's had. But I mean, obviously, making a semifinal at what was it, Wimbledon?
2021. It was the summer I graduated from college.
Okay.
I was actually watching that Hurkacz match outside the DMV because my license was expired, just like on my phone.
Damn.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I remember that.
Solid.
I know. Did you see those tennis TV AI generated 90s yearbook photographs?
I did see some of those. Yeah.
Rublev and Hurkacz was hilarious.
I didn't see that one.
Rublev's is hysterical.
That's funny. I'll check it out. But honestly, Hurkacz didn't have the easiest run through that tournament because he had a couple of matches that he could have pretty easily lost. Like in the round of 16, he played Zhizhen Zhang. It's a lot of Z's in a name.
Hmm.
But that match was super close. Like he won 7-6, 4-6, 7-6. I know Zhang would have gotten so much support if he had won that match.
I know. And I've noticed, I think with the Chinese crowd, they are very wild because remember, they haven't had a tennis tournament since 2019 there. So I think the crowd's just super excited to be back. You kind of hear it when you're watching the matches too, like in points, like, oh, oh, oh. Like there's a lot of I guess fan interaction during the points. And they
Yeah.
get into it. They love it. So
100%.
I wish I would have seen Zhang kind of
Yeah.
give them what they wanted.
Yeah. I mean, but he also, speaking of the Hungarian headhunter, he also lost the first set to Maroszan. So that could have been a massive upset too. It went 4-6, but then Hurkacz kind of locked in, went 6-1, 6-3.
Yeah, he's probably, I'm not succumbing to this. We should get the Hungarian headhunter and just have like a kill list of the players' faces that he beats with like X's through them.
Just like they slowly
him just in the
fade to black and
background.
white.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then obviously like we were just talking about, really intense final, great match. But honestly, impressive that you can fight through those matches like that.
So what do you think about this right here? If Hurkacz did not win the final today and lost, do you think he would look back at it, or people would look back and be like, okay, he had a successful tournament. He got second place. Whereas, remember we kind of talked about this?
We did talk about that. I think
like Rublev is pissed he lost, in my opinion.
I think it's different. I think Hurkacz and Rublev are at different spots in their career, because Rublev is like established in the top 10. Hurkacz, while he's like been in the top 10, right now he's a top 20 guy. And when a top 20 guy wins a Masters 1000 event, it's incredibly impressive. If Rublev won this, people would be looking back at it, right? And they'd be like, okay, who won the tournaments this year? Blah, 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 Rublev, okay, right? It would just be like, okay, he won that tournament. Versus you see Hurkacz and you're like, oh, Hurkacz won this one. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if he had made the final, they'd been like, yeah, it was a good run. Because you weren't expecting him to be a top contender in this tournament going into it. Versus Rublev was like, while he isn't necessarily Alcaraz or Medvedev, he's a guy that you were like, okay, I could see him winning this tournament going into it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just wondering what Hurkacz's point of view would have been after this tournament if he didn't win. Because, yeah, like you said, he did not have an easy route to where he did. So he fought. He had a gritty, just like, I feel like either way, he could be able to look back and be proud of himself.
Well, I think here's the thing. I did say, like, he did have a tough run in terms of, like, how difficult the matches actually were. But in terms of the actual opponents, he didn't have the toughest run. So it is kind of a mixed bag there. But also, I think if you look at it from two different perspectives, I think from Hurkacz's point of view, if he lost the tournament, he would have been like, oh, I'm really disappointed I lost. I was so close. But from a fan's perspective, it would have been different. I think from a fan's perspective, it would have been, oh, he made a great run. Nobody expected him to make the final.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just wondering if Hurkacz is on the radar now, if people are going to start taking him seriously, like when you go into a match against Hurkacz, if they're thinking like, oh, I got to buckle down. This isn't going to be an easy match.
Yeah, well, I don't think they were really considering him like an easy opponent before, but maybe they will start considering him like, okay, this is a guy that I'm not massively favored against. Like, I could see this, like, it would be reasonable for this guy to beat me, so I have to be aware of it. Versus maybe earlier it was like, he could beat me, but I don't expect him to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this tournament was a big toss-up for the race to turn, right? Because some guys who need valuable points weren't able to get them.
Yeah, I mean, speaking on Hurkacz, a lot of articles I saw were like, Hurkacz just made a statement, and maybe if he can continue a little bit and collect some more points, could still qualify. Because obviously, like, Djokovic, Alcaraz, Medvedev, and Sinner have already qualified, and like even Rublev is essentially in. Like, it would have to be a crazy turn of events in the last couple tournaments for him not to make it.
But so what would have to happen? Like, he would have
to have first round losses in every tournament, or actually maybe even pull out of some of these tournaments so that he gets 0 points. Because a first round exit gives you like some points still, but he's essentially in. I think he would have to like have essentially no points, and then every single other person would have to like make incredible runs, everyone behind him. The question really is like, who takes these last 3 spots? Because right now it's Tsitsipas, Zverev, and Rune, and they all lost in the first couple of rounds in Shanghai, so they're not playing at the highest level right now, which means those spots are maybe up for grabs. Like, we don't really know for sure. Right outside number 9 is Fritz. He definitely could make it, especially if someone like Rune continues to like struggle a little bit. Fritz could easily make it in. Ruud and Hurkacz are like right there now at 10 and 11. And then kind of the long shots are Tommy Paul and Deminar. They're not super close, But if they had some really good results and guys above them didn't, they could still make it.
Yeah. So I believe Tsitsipas and Zverev are in Tokyo, right?
I think so.
Playing in Tokyo. So I wonder if it was strategic for Runa to pick to play in Stockholm versus in Tokyo. Like, how are they deciding which tournaments they're playing to get to turn? Do you know?
I don't know for sure, but I would guess that yeah, there was a level of strategy in terms of like if Runa
Mhm.
says, "Hey, I'm going to go play in this other tournament. Maybe I'll get a couple rounds,
Mhm.
and maybe even if I lose early, I can still collect more points than I might have playing in like a tougher tournament."
Yeah. Okay.
Because obviously, it's easier to go from Shanghai to Tokyo than it
Mhm.
is to go from Shanghai to
Stockholm.
Stockholm. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not an easy commute.
There's also one in Antwerp as well going on at the same time.
Yeah, lots of tournaments kind of
So
like getting rushed in at the end of the year almost.
yeah. Yeah. I don't like when there are so many, not so many, but multiple tournaments going on because you don't get all the good guys concentrated in one. It's kind of scattered.
Yeah, it is interesting. Yeah, you get you have to be like, okay, this guy's playing. Oh, he won? I thought this other. Oh no, that was a different tournament.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you're getting people that you just haven't heard of either.
They make those deep runs. You're like, who is this dude?
Yeah.
But alrighty, you want to hop into segments?
Yeah, let's do it. So, speaking of Runa, I came across an article. Holger Rune teams up with tennis legend Boris Becker.
Mm,
This caught my attention for sure. First of all, because Boris Becker just got out of prison, which, yeah, I don't know if you were aware.
I know there
So
was a
this is,
documentary about him.
yeah, this is his first coaching stint since he's been released, and we know Rune's history with Patrick. He parted ways with him after the US Open, and he's just not been playing well. So I really hope that Boris Becker could kind of add some value here. He's not a permanent coach, but Rune's mom, who's also his manager, was pretty explicit in saying that he will come on into something more permanent, whether it is a coach or just like a regular consultant or advisor.
Mm.
So, I mean, super interesting to see how this will play out. I really hope that it works out for Runa because when he's on top, when his level of play is competitive with all the other guys, it's so fun to watch him.
Yeah, he can beat anybody when he's playing at his top
Mhm.
level.
Yep.
Speaking on Becker, didn't he coach? He coached Djokovic from 2014 to 2016, right?
Yeah, he did. Djokovic, I think, got 2 or 3 slams out of there
That was
too.
like I think Djokovic's like prime period. Like that was when Djokovic was really just dominating tennis.
Yeah.
Like the second half of 2014 to like 2016, he was just on top.
Yeah. So hey, maybe we'll see. Maybe we'll see that with Runa too.
Yeah, I mean that would be pretty cool to see.
All right. What is your news of the week?
What I saw this week was Djokovic. He made kind of an expected announcement, which is that he'll only be playing in 3 more tournaments this year: Paris, the ATP Finals, and the Davis Cup. But the interesting part about the article was that he said his biggest goal is to win the Davis Cup, and he's not as focused on the year-end number one, which is an interesting thing because it kind of mixes it up from like the Djokovic sort of storyline that everybody's always talking about. The Djokovic is always like focused on like, oh, I got to have all these accomplishments. He's like, all of his goals are focused on like being the greatest of all time. Maybe the Davis Cup is what he needs for that, but you would think the year-end number one would be his focus. But I think it does kind of make sense at this point in his career because he's kind of older now, and he I think wants to share the wealth in a way so that like guys that are on the Davis Cup team can also feel like that win.
Mhm. For sure. I also think that since Djokovic has been number one so many times and for so long throughout his career, it's just not as meaningful to him anymore. Like he's already done it, he's achieved it. Not being concerned with ending the year number one is kind of I agree with his stance there.
Yeah,
It
100%.
just kind of loses value because he's not chasing it, he's not chasing it anymore. He's already done it. So it's not really a big priority for
Yeah,
him.
yeah, and maybe to an extent, it's like he's like, who's gonna catch my records on this?
Mhm.
Alrighty, how about a bet of the week?
Yeah, bet of the week. I'm going with another parlay this week. Two
Mm.
leg parlay this time. I know. I kind of like these parlays. Like I said, I'm should be doing locks, so I'm going with Tommy Paul over Altmaier and Rude over Watanuki. So the Tommy Paul line is -400 and Rude over Watanuki is -220. parlay those together, minus 123. So my rationale, my thesis here is just Tommy Paul and Rude are the better players and should prevail. So
Yeah.
going with that, pretty confident in this one. Leaving Fritz out of the parlay, just going with two legs.
Yeah. It's funny when I look at this, I'd like to say like, oh, I feel like Rude over Watanuki is like the more risky bet because that's how it feels to me. But I know if I like really like believe that, Tommy Paul is going to be the one that loses because that's always what happens.
I know. Well, Watanuki's sneaky. I feel like I've definitely kind of seen him on the map for a little.
Yeah. My bet of the week is Vukic plus 155 over FAA. I mean,
Dude,
if we're making bets
easy.
based on trends this year, it seems like the easiest bet in the world. FAA has not had a good year. Honestly, Vukic has had some good results. He made like the final in Washington against who was that? Against Fritz. And FAA has done not much. So it's going to depend on whether FAA can kind of tap into the last year's FAA because I mean this is when he needs to because FAA his time when he really collected a ton of points last year was right now in October and November. And if he loses these points, it's going to be a tough wake up in December when he's ranked like 55.
I can't even imagine that. Just what a fall.
Well, I mean, it's like Berrettini. Like, where's Berrettini ranked right now?
Dude, good point. But Berrettini's also been injured. I don't think it's
Yeah,
like
but
he
I
hasn't
think
just been
FAA
playing all these tournaments where he's
that's-
been losing though.
But I think FAA is also injured. I think he's just like trying to play through it.
Yeah, see, that's when he needs to just draw the line.
You like Shapovalov.
Hmm.
Think about him. Like he decided, okay, I'm gonna just forego the rest of the year and I'm gonna recover. If he comes back next year and is playing great again, FAA is not gonna look like the smartest dude. But
I know. Maybe it's financial though. Maybe he needs to pay the staff, the coaches.
yeah,
Jeez, dude, can't even imagine. But yeah, what was your match of the week?
like I was talking about earlier, my match of the week was Korda beating Shelton 6-7, 6-2, 7-6. I mean, starting it off insanely tight first set, went to like 12-10, I want to say, in the tiebreak, ended up going Shelton's way. I think those first three games in the next set became critical because Korda jumped out, broke early in that second set, and then just got that momentum swing and carried it right through the end of the set, won at 6-2. In that third set, he also got a break early, and he ended up going up ahead, but then Shelton settled in, he broke back, went to a tiebreak, and Korda ended up getting it done and just set up points, delivered, came to the net, played a clean match, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Did you see after the match when Shelton and Korda were shaking hands? Shelton was like, yeah, that 140-mile-an-hour serve just came right back at me.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, like I was talking about with the difference between the Hurkacz match and the Shelton match, like Korda was able to deal with those serves against Shelton, but against Hurkacz, it was just a different story.
Yeah, jeez.
What about you? What was your match of the week?
Yeah, mine was the stunner, the Dimitrov over Alcaraz stunner, 5-7, 6-2, 6-4. So to me, this was kind of a symbolic victory because you saw Dimitrov. Previously, he was supposed to be kind of that rival to the big three, which never really ended up panning out to anything. So for him to beat Alcaraz, who is like the next up and coming, clearly one of the best players on tour right now. So I feel like Dimitrov, it was kind of like all right, like couldn't get it done against the older big three, but I still got it. I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. So thought that was pretty neat. And the way he just kind of dismantled Alcaraz's serve, like he was all over it, hitting winner returns. And I think because he was playing Alcaraz kind of brought out a new fire in Dimitrov, and he was able to play up to his level, which actually ended up helping him. And I think we saw a bunch of like crazy plays at the net too. Despite losing, Alcaraz was just a beast up there, getting stuff, really showing his athleticism. And then Grigor too, for a 32-year-old, that man can still move. But all around great match.
Yeah. Can you imagine like Dimitrov wins like 3 Grand Slams after Djokovic retires? He's
Then
like,
he
I'm
could
making
officially be
I'm
called,
making my
yeah.
comeback at 35, and just all of a sudden he wins like 3 slams. That would actually be sick. I would love to see
That would
Dimitrov
be.
win a slam.
I know. I wonder which one it would be. What's his best surface?
I could see him winning like the Australian. Someone's got to take the spot of
Yeah, someone's
Djokovic after he retires.
nobody's going to do this. All right, and that's the show. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at Painting Lines Podcast. Feel free to shoot us a DM or email us any questions or thoughts at paintinglinespodcast@gmail.com.